Scientists decided to thoroughly investigate the Chernobyl forest, and their discovery shocked the whole world. What did they find in this exclusion zone? What happened to the fauna almost 40 years after the worst nuclear disaster in history? In this video, we'll go through all the details so you can understand how nature has adapted to such extreme conditions. Stay tuned. It will be very interesting. Be sure to subscribe to our channel, put likes, and leave comments. Your opinion is very important to us. On April 25, 1986, a tragedy of world scale occurred in northern Ukraine. The reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploded and burned down. This event was the most tragic moment in the history of nuclear power. Today, nearly 4 decades later, scientists estimate that the area around the former nuclear power plant will remain uninhabitable for the next 20,000 years. However, nature has proven to be much more resilient and adaptive than one might have expected. After the disaster, the vast areas around the plant became an exclusion zone with virtually no people. But in recent decades, this area has turned into a unique wildlife sanctuary, one of the largest in the world. Scientists launched a project to study the fauna of this zone, and it turned out that the lack of human intervention had a much more significant impact on the fauna than radiation. Animals have been found in the Chernobyl zone that have not been seen here for more than a century. Over the last 30 years, the number of animals in the exclusion zone has increased several times, suggesting that radiation has had less of an impact on the fauna than human activity. Studies have shown a significant increase in the population of wild boars, roe deer, and foxes. In addition, rare species such as the European lynx and brown bear have been spotted here. Professor Jim Smith from the University of Portsmouth argues that the disaster, for all its devastating effect, has created a unique reserve. We're not arguing that radiation is a good thing, but the absence of humans has allowed wildlife to thrive. Rare Przewalski's horses have been spotted in the Chernobyl zone and are doing just fine, and their numbers continue to grow. According to scientists, there are 7 times more wolves here than in the nearby reserves. Some bird species have started to return, settling near destroyed buildings and dense forests, which no one is now cutting down. This proves once again that even in the face of radiation contamination, nature finds ways to survive and reproduce. However, not everything is so perfect. Scientists have found a decrease in the number of beneficial bacteria and unusual mutations among some species. Nevertheless, the absence of human activity creates conditions for wildlife to thrive, which has become a unique phenomenon not only for Chernobyl, but for the whole world. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, give a like to this video, and leave a comment. Your opinion is very important for us. Stay tuned not to miss more interesting facts and discoveries about the Chernobyl exclusion zone and its amazing nature. The Chernobyl disaster left many pets without owners who left these places. Some pets died, while others managed to adapt to life without humans. In the Chernobyl zone near the village of Lubiany, scientists found a unique herd of wild cows, which have been actively monitored for 3 years. These cows perfectly manage without human participation in their life. The herd is the descendants of those cows that were left to fend for themselves. They are 4th or 5th generation bulls and cows. Due to the long Nawa in the herd, a strict hierarchy has been established. Now, the most important bull is a huge male who lost one eye in battles with predators. He does not drive the other bulls out of the herd unless they touch his females. Bulls are fighting units and help the herd in defense against predators. They have learned to defend themselves against packs of wolves by standing in a tight ring with calves and cows in the middle of it. Eventually, the genes took over, and the struggle for survival completely changed the lives of domestic animals. Now they are much closer to their ancestors, the aurochs, than to ordinary domestic cows in their way of life. It's amazing that such changes have happened to them in just a few generations. The last auroch, the wild ancestor of modern cattle, died in the forests of Poland around 1627. Scientists can't believe that it was easy enough for cows to adapt to life without human hosts. And now they fulfill a very important function in the Chernobyl region to preserve the landscape of the area, as they are essentially living lawnmowers. These much-changed domestic animals have learned to endure even very cold winters, tearing up snow with their hooves for food and finding shelter in dilapidated barns. Today, there are about 20 animals in the herd. Domestic herds usually graze in large meadows, but these cows tend to stick mostly to forest edges where they can more easily fend off numerous wolves. After everything they have seen, the scientists have come to a striking conclusion. Despite the heavy radiation contamination, the area around Chernobyl is even more comfortable for animals without humans, both wild and formerly domesticated, than any other area on the planet where there is a human presence. Nature is recovering and thriving where there is no human intervention. This gives us hope that nature can recover from even the most devastating disasters if given the chance. There are a number of so-called attractions in the abandoned town. They are included in the obligatory program of any excursion to CHNPP. For example, an abandoned amusement park with a brand new Ferris wheel, which never managed to take visitors for a ride. It was supposed to be opened on May 1st, 1986. However, in 2017, a group of tourists from Poland managed to launch the ride by their own means, without using electricity. They filmed the process on video and became famous all over the world. Another place of attraction for tourists in Pripyat is the radar station Duga, which is a huge metal structure. It was designed for early detection of intercontinental ballistic missile launches. Official sightseeing tours included a visit to the station, but it was forbidden to climb it. The height of the station is about 135 meters and it offers a beautiful view of the surrounding area, but climbing up there is dangerous and too reckless. In case of an emergency, it will take a long time before the victims are found by the official services. Therefore, climb there at their own risk only stalkers. Kindergarten in Pripyat, also a mandatory point of excursions. Part of the rooms and furniture in it restored, and did it stalkers, not the official authorities. Preserved cribs and toys. In addition, illegal walkers recreated several rooms in the apartments of the city itself. For this purpose, they collected rarities from all over Pripyat, painted the walls, hung fresh curtains. Stalkering. Another problem of the alienation zone is stalkers. Young people who illegally enter the territory of the exclusion zone. They are not afraid of radiation and laws. For the sake of new sensations, they are ready to risk everything. That is why illegal excursions are often conducted in the territory around the nuclear power plant, even at sites that are strictly forbidden to visit. The problem of stalking is also that illegal tourists can provoke dangerous situations at Chernobyl with unpredictable consequences. For example, it was stalkers who were blamed for the large-scale fires in 2020, which covered a huge territory in the exclusion zone. Then burned several villages. The fire came to Pripyat and directly to the station. The entire red forest was destroyed. The fire was extinguished only after several weeks. In addition, there are assumptions that the Chernobyl NPP exclusion zone can be used to grow narcotic drugs. This is evidenced by laboratory tests of substances found in the possession of detained distributors. For example, in 2012, a drug laboratory in Moscow was liquidated, where radioactive substances were stored, including alleged soil from Chernobyl. Nature. The elimination of the anthropogenic factor had a positive effect on the fauna of the zone around the Chernobyl NPP. Animals have learned to cope with radiation. Bear, badger, lynx, and other rare animals were spotted here. Moreover, the populations of spotted eagles and white-tailed eagles have been restored in the exclusion zone almost from scratch. In the 1990s, scientists sent Przewalski's horses there as an experiment. The animals took root. How was Chernobyl affected by the NWO? In 2022, the Russian military entered the exclusion zone in Ukraine and took control of the nuclear power plant. It was reported that the plant was operating normally and the Russian military was guarding it along with the Ukrainian military. There was no fighting in the exclusion zone, the plant was not damaged, and no one was injured. However, due to the movement of heavy equipment, the radiation background increased for a while. Radioactive dust rose from the ground. On March 31st, units of the Russian armed forces left the exclusion zone, and the management of CHNPP was handed over to Ukrainian specialists. When will people be able to return to Pripyat? According to the estimates of the former head of the Ukrainian Ministry of Natural Resources, Roman Abramovsky, it will be possible to return to the 30-kilometer exclusion zone around the Chernobyl NPP in 50 to 60 years. During this time, the activity of radiation elements should decrease, and the most dangerous substances are promised to be closed by the liquidators in a special storage facility. At the same time, it is unlikely that people will ever be able to live in the 10-kilometer zone around the NPP again, Abramovsky noted. However, according to some scientists, Chernobyl can be populated even now. The half-life of radioactive isotopes has already ended, and in most locations the radiation level is no higher than in an average city. The only danger is dust specks that can rise into the air in high winds.